Willow Creek, a quiet town where families thrived, neighbors exchanged smiles, and safety felt like a given. But in 1981, this idyllic community became the setting of a tragedy so shocking, it left scars that would never heal. Sarah Lawson was a single mother raising her two boys, Adam and Daniel, after a difficult divorce. She worked tirelessly to make their modest home a haven of love and laughter. For Sarah, her sons were everything. 15-year-old Adam was headstrong and protective, while 12-year-old Daniel was quieter and more imaginative. Together, they formed a close-knit family that brought warmth to their little corner of Willow Creek. But beneath her cheerful demeanor, Sarah was dealing with an unsettling problem. Sarah had confided to a friend about her neighbor, Jim Sanders. Jim was quiet, awkward, and always watching. Sarah tried to brush off her unease. After all, this was Willow Creek. Nothing bad ever happened here, right? Jim Sanders was the kind of man people noticed but rarely spoke to. He kept to himself, his presence felt but never questioned. But for Sarah, his constant stares and subtle intrusions were hard to ignore. Sarah's sister, Lisa, noticed too. "He's always around, Sarah," Lisa told her. "Doesn't that creep you out?" But Sarah dismissed her sister's concerns, saying, "He's just lonely. I don't think he means any harm." The day before Sarah's life came to a brutal end was unremarkable in many ways. She helped Daniel with homework, reminded Adam to clean his room, and spent the evening tidying up after dinner. To anyone looking in, it was just another ordinary day. Adam and Sarah had argued that evening, a typical teenage rebellion about chores. Adam stormed off, slamming his bedroom door, leaving Sarah looking tired and defeated. Outside, in the shadows, someone was watching. The next morning, Sarah's sister Lisa arrived for their usual coffee date. But when Sarah didn't answer the door, Lisa's concern grew. She walked around the house, noticing something odd. The screen on Sarah's bedroom window was missing. Inside, Sarah lay motionless on her bed, her face partially covered. A twisted coat hanger was still wrapped around her neck. Lisa screamed, and within minutes, the quiet street was swarmed with flashing police lights. Willow Creek, a town that had always felt safe, was now the scene of a horrific crime, and the question on everyone's mind was, who could do this? As Detective Miller dug deeper, more questions than answers emerged. Who left the palm print on Sarah's windowsill? And what secrets lay hidden in Willow Creek? The truth would take decades to unravel. But one thing was clear: this quiet town would never be the same again. The murder of Sarah Lawson left a deep scar on Willow Creek. For the Lawson family, it was a devastating loss that shattered their sense of safety. But beyond the grief, questions lingered. Who could have committed such a horrific act, and why? In the days following Sarah's death, the community rallied around her boys, Adam and Daniel, offering support and sympathy. But beneath the surface, the town's quiet streets began to feel different, darker, uneasy, as if the tragedy had awakened something they didn't want to see. Among those offering support, Coach Ben emerged as a steady presence for the Lawson family. Known for his dedication to the boys on and off the football field, Ben became a lifeline for Adam and Daniel during their darkest days. Lisa, Sarah's sister, had taken in the boys. Overwhelmed by grief and the responsibility of caring for them, she welcomed any help she could get, and Coach Ben was there, always ready to lend a hand. For Adam and Daniel, Coach Ben wasn't just their football coach anymore. He was someone they could rely on, someone who reminded them that they weren't alone. While the Lawson family struggled to find their footing, the tragedy cast a shadow over the entire neighborhood. And as the investigation deepened, attention began to shift to those who lived closest to Sarah. The Thompsons had recently moved into Willow Creek, just a few houses down from Sarah's home. They seemed like a perfect family. Jack, a hardworking father, Emily, an outgoing and active mother, and their son Ryan, a quiet teen who loved soccer and exploring the woods behind the neighborhood. As investigators worked to piece together the night of the murder, whispers began to circulate among the neighbors. Jim Sanders, the quiet and socially awkward man who lived next to Sarah, quickly became the focus of speculation. Jim had been seen near Sarah's house late at night, and Sarah herself had expressed discomfort about his presence. But so far, nothing concrete had emerged to connect him to the crime. While the investigation continued, Adam and Daniel struggled to find normalcy. For Adam, football became an outlet for his anger and grief, while Daniel retreated further into his art. Coach Ben's steady guidance helped Adam focus, even as the weight of his mother's death threatened to overwhelm him. For Daniel, his drawings became a quiet way to remember and honor Sarah. As weeks passed, new details began to emerge about the night of Sarah's murder. A witness came forward claiming to have seen someone near Sarah's home, but the description was vague, a figure in dark clothing, moving quickly through the shadows. This new lead added another layer to an already complex case. Who was this figure, and what were they doing near Sarah's home that night? With more questions than answers, the investigation was far from over. As Detective Miller dug deeper, the spotlight shifted to other members of the community and the secrets they were hiding. By the third week after Sarah Lawson's murder, Willow Creek's calm exterior had begun to unravel. The police investigation pressed on, neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and the weight of the tragedy bore down on everyone. But in one home, the tension was far greater than anyone knew. For Emily Thompson, life had always been about maintaining appearances. A kind neighbor, an attentive mother, and a doting wife, she fit perfectly into the fabric of Willow Creek. But behind the walls of her home, she harbored a secret fear. Her son Ryan was not the boy everyone thought he was. 17-year-old Ryan Thompson was bright, quiet, and deeply introspective. But Emily had noticed changes in him months before Sarah's death, changes she couldn't explain, no matter how hard she tried. On one occasion, Emily had walked into Ryan's room to find him staring at a drawing of Sarah. He claimed it was just for practice, his attempt at improving his art skills, but Emily wasn't convinced. The detail in the sketch was unnerving. "Ryan, that's enough," Emily had snapped, trying to mask the rising panic in her voice. But Ryan just shrugged, mumbling something about it being harmless. Each time Emily tried to address his behavior, Ryan dismissed her concerns, leaving her torn between fear and denial. After all, what mother wants to believe her son is capable of something dark? For weeks, Emily had wrestled with her suspicions. Ryan's strange behavior escalated after Sarah's death. He often walked past the Lawson home late at night, and Emily noticed him staring at the house for far too long. One night, unable to sleep, Emily searched Ryan's room while he was out. What she found left her breathless, a hidden stash of photographs of Sarah, most of them candid shots taken without her knowledge. It was then that Emily began to fear the worst. Emily had tried to brush off his obsession as a teenage phase, a misguided fascination with the neighbor they'd only recently met. But deep down, she knew there was more to it. Ryan had become fixated on Sarah in a way that wasn't normal, and now she feared it might have cost Sarah her life. What could have driven Ryan's obsession with Sarah? Emily began to piece together fragments of conversations and moments from the past year. Ryan had often mentioned Sarah in casual conversations, her smile, her kindness, even the way she dressed. At first, Emily thought it was just admiration, but after Sarah's death, the pieces began to fall into place. Emily realized Ryan's fascination had turned into resentment. He blamed Sarah for not reciprocating his admiration, for treating him like a child. And now, Emily couldn't shake the thought that Ryan might have acted on that resentment. The tension in the Thompson household reached a breaking point. Emily's attempts to control Ryan only pushed him further away, and Jack's refusal to believe his son could do anything wrong left her feeling isolated. For Emily, the weight of suspicion was unbearable. She felt trapped, knowing that if she was right, her silence could be disastrous, and if she was wrong, she might lose her son forever. Weeks later, Emily made a decision that would haunt her. She followed Ryan into the woods one night. What she found left her shaken to the core. Emily watched in silence as Ryan placed a drawing of Sarah on the ground, covering it with stones as if it were a grave marker. The act was quiet, deliberate, and deeply unsettling. In that moment, Emily realized she could no longer stay silent. But what would she do now? And what would happen if Ryan's secret ever came to light? As Emily retreated from the woods that night, she carried with her a secret that could destroy her family. But the question remained, was Ryan truly connected to Sarah's murder? Or was his behavior just the product of a troubled mind struggling to cope? While Emily Thompson struggled with the weight of her suspicions about her son, the rest of Willow Creek remained gripped by the mystery of Sarah Lawson's death. The investigation pressed on, neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and buried secrets began to surface. This was no longer just a murder case. For Detective Miller, it was a puzzle that seemed to grow more complicated with every piece uncovered. From the start, Jim Sanders had been the primary focus of the investigation. His odd behavior and proximity to Sarah's home made him a natural suspect. But as the case wore on, the lack of hard evidence began to frustrate both the police and the community. Neighbors described Jim as quiet but odd. He rarely spoke to anyone, but his constant presence around Sarah's home hadn't gone unnoticed. Sarah herself had expressed concerns to her sister Lisa, just weeks before her death. Despite Jim's strange behavior, his alibi for the night of Sarah's murder remained intact. Witnesses placed him at a local diner until midnight, leaving Detective Miller to wonder, was Jim Sanders truly guilty or just an easy target? As the investigation dragged on, the once close community of Willow Creek began to show cracks. Rumors and suspicions spread like wildfire, leaving neighbors eyeing one another with doubt and mistrust. In this small town where everyone seemed to know everyone, Sarah's murder left a chilling realization: anyone could be hiding something. Lisa's vocal accusations against Jim further divided the community. While some agreed with her suspicions, others pointed out the lack of evidence and urged caution. Just as the case seemed to stall, a surprising new lead emerged. A witness came forward, claiming to have seen a shadowy figure near Sarah's home on the night of her murder. The witness couldn't provide a clear description, just a tall figure in dark clothing moving quickly through the shadows. While the information was vague, it gave Detective Miller a renewed sense of direction. Who was this person? And why were they near Sarah's home on the night of her death? For Miller, the lead was promising, but it also raised more questions than answers. Meanwhile, Sarah's sons, Adam and Daniel, continued to struggle with the loss of their mother. But with the help of Lisa and Coach Ben, they slowly began to find moments of solace. For Adam, football became an outlet for his grief, and for Daniel, art became a way to hold on to the memories of his mother. Coach Ben's presence provided a steady anchor for both boys during their darkest days. As new leads emerged and the investigation took unexpected turns, the question remained, who killed Sarah Lawson? And what secrets were still hidden in the shadows of Willow Creek? The loss of Sarah Lawson left her family reeling. For Adam, Daniel, and Lisa, every day was a struggle, a battle between grief, guilt, and the pressure to move forward. As the investigation dragged on, so did the tension in Willow Creek, where whispers and suspicions cast long shadows over the once peaceful town. But for each member of the Lawson family, the grief took a different shape, manifesting in ways that threatened to pull them apart. For Adam, Sarah's oldest son, the loss of his mother was more than just grief. It was anger, guilt, and a question that haunted him every day. What if their last conversation hadn't been an argument? Adam threw himself into football practice, using the field as an outlet for his anger. But even there, the weight of his guilt was inescapable. He couldn't escape the memories of his mother, or the nagging thought that he hadn't done enough to make her life easier. For 12-year-old Daniel, the grief was quieter but no less profound. He withdrew into himself, using his drawings as a way to keep his mother's memory alive. But even in his art, the loss was clear. Coach Ben became a steady presence in Daniel's life, offering support in ways the boy didn't even know he needed. For Daniel, Ben became a father figure, a role that Sarah had always tried to fill, but now left vacant. For Lisa, Sarah's sister, the grief was compounded by guilt. She couldn't shake the feeling that she should have done more to protect Sarah, that if she had paid more attention to Sarah's fears about Jim Sanders, her sister might still be alive. Lisa's vocal suspicions of Jim Sanders created tension in the community and within her own family. For Lisa, the guilt was inescapable. She had promised Sarah she would always be there for her, and now it felt like a promise she had failed to keep. As the Lawson family struggled to hold themselves together, Coach Ben's presence grew stronger. He became more than just a mentor, he was a lifeline. For Adam and Daniel, Ben provided a sense of stability they hadn't felt since Sarah's death. But for Lisa, his growing influence brought mixed emotions. As much as Lisa appreciated Ben's help, she couldn't help but feel that no one, not even Ben, could truly replace Sarah. Just as the family began to find moments of normalcy, a startling development reignited the tension. A key witness came forward, claiming to have seen someone entering Sarah's home on the night of her murder. The description was vague, a tall figure in dark clothing, but it was enough to breathe new life into the investigation. But would this new lead bring them closer to the truth? Or was it just another dead end in a case that had already taken so much from the Lawson family? As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, the question remained, who was the shadowy figure seen that night? And what secrets were still waiting to be uncovered in Willow Creek? Time is both a healer and a thief. For the Lawson family, time brought moments of solace but never erased the shadow of Sarah's death. As days turned into years, life carried on, bringing unexpected connections and changes that none of them could have foreseen. But even as the years passed, some things remained constant: grief, love, and the secrets they all carried in their hearts. Coach Ben had always been a steady presence in the Lawson family's lives, but as the years passed, his role grew deeper. What began as a friendship with Lisa slowly transformed into something more. Lisa found comfort in Ben's calm and unwavering support. For Ben, Lisa's resilience and kindness became a source of admiration, and then affection. Neither of them wanted to complicate the boys' lives or risk tarnishing the memory of Sarah. So, they kept their feelings hidden, speaking volumes in the silences they shared. For Adam and Daniel, growing up without their mother was never easy. But they found strength in each other, and in Coach Ben, who became more than just a mentor. Daniel, in particular, admired Ben deeply. For years, he kept a photo of his coach on his wall, a quiet testament to the role Ben had played in shaping his life. Adam, meanwhile, channeled his energy into football, carrying on the lessons Ben had taught him both on and off the field. As the boys grew older, their bond with Ben became unshakable. As the years turned into decades, life carried the Lawson family forward. The boys grew up, left Willow Creek, and started families of their own. Lisa and Ben, now in their 60s, remained in the town that had once been the site of so much tragedy. But even as life continued, the shadow of Sarah's death lingered in their hearts. The case had gone cold, leaving them with more questions than answers. For nearly 40 years, the Lawson family carried the weight of an unsolved tragedy, each of them finding ways to honor Sarah's memory while moving forward with their lives. Though Lisa and Ben had grown closer than ever, they had never admitted their feelings, not even to themselves. But as the years passed, their connection became undeniable. For Lisa, Ben had been a source of strength, a constant in a life that had been anything but steady. And for Ben, Lisa had become a light in the darkness that followed Sarah's death. But even as they found joy in each other, the past remained, a quiet presence that neither of them could fully escape. 40 years is a long time to carry a secret. But in Willow Creek, time has a way of unearthing the truth. And as the past comes back to light, it will bring with it revelations no one is prepared for. In 2019, nearly 40 years after Sarah Lawson's tragic death, advancements in forensic technology brought new hope to a case that had haunted Willow Creek for decades. What began as a quiet reopening of a cold file would soon erupt into revelations no one could have imagined. The discovery of a usable print from Sarah's windowsill marked a turning point, one that would uncover a shocking truth buried in the shadows for decades. Detective Claire Davis, tasked with reviewing the Lawson case, approached the evidence with fresh eyes. The palm print, once dismissed as unusable, was reanalyzed using cutting-edge technology, finally revealing a match. The match wasn't just unexpected, it was devastating. The print belonged to someone the Lawson family had trusted implicitly, Coach Ben. For Davis, the revelation raised more questions than answers. How had Ben escaped suspicion for so long? And what had truly driven him to take Sarah's life? As investigators delved into Ben's history, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Flashbacks from those who knew him revealed a man who had hidden his obsession and guilt behind a mask of trustworthiness. Ben's fixation on Sarah had grown over years. He admired her strength and beauty, but beneath his admiration lay a dangerous need for control. Sarah had expressed discomfort about Ben's increasing presence, but her concerns were dismissed by those around her. After all, Ben was just being helpful, or so they thought. What no one realized was that Ben's growing involvement in Sarah's life wasn't kindness. It was a calculated effort to gain access and deflect suspicion. Using the newfound evidence, detectives began piecing together the events of the night Sarah was killed. The story they uncovered painted a chilling picture. On the night of her murder, Ben had entered Sarah's home through the bedroom window, a calculated act that took advantage of his familiarity with her habits and trust. What happened next was a tragic escalation of Ben's obsession. When Sarah resisted, Ben's desperation turned to rage, and in a moment of uncontrollable anger, he took her life. For years, Ben had hidden his crime, inserting himself into the Lawson family's lives to cover his tracks. It was a move as calculated as it was cruel. With the evidence in hand, the police prepared to confront Ben. For a man who had spent decades crafting a facade, the cracks were about to show. At first, Ben denied everything, his calm demeanor unwavering. But as detectives presented the evidence, the palm print, the timeline, the witnesses, his composure began to falter. Ben's denials grew weaker, his story riddled with inconsistencies. For the first time in decades, the truth was beginning to emerge. With Coach Ben in custody, the Lawson family finally had the answers they had waited for. But as the investigation continued, one lingering question remained: what had truly driven Ben to commit such an unspeakable act? The truth was out, but the story wasn't over yet. What else would Ben reveal? And how would the Lawson family begin to heal from the scars of his betrayal? The truth, when it finally came to light, left a community reeling and a family shattered. Sarah Lawson's murder had always been a tragedy, but learning the killer's identity transformed it into a betrayal of unimaginable proportions. But to truly understand the depth of this betrayal, we must go back to where it all began, to the moment Sarah Lawson and Ben Wills first met, and to the seeds of an obsession that would eventually destroy a family. In the late 1970s, Sarah Lawson was a young wife and mother living in Willow Creek. Her marriage, though outwardly perfect, was anything but. Behind closed doors, she endured years of emotional and physical abuse from her husband, Mark, a man whose temper was as volatile as it was terrifying. Ben first met Sarah at the local grocery store. She was buying snacks for Adam's first football practice. Her face tired, but her smile warm. For Ben, it was love at first sight. To Sarah, it was a simple act of kindness. To Ben, it was the beginning of something he would later describe as fate. As Ben spent more time around Sarah, his admiration for her grew. He saw her as strong, beautiful, and deserving of more than the life she had with Mark. What began as admiration soon twisted into something far darker. Ben's feelings for Sarah deepened over time. He began looking for excuses to be near her, volunteering to drive Adam to practice, stopping by her house unannounced to check on the boys, and offering to help with chores. Sarah, overwhelmed by the pressures of her marriage and raising two boys, saw Ben as a harmless and helpful friend, but she never realized the depth of his fixation. For Ben, Sarah represented everything he thought he deserved but could never have. A life of love, admiration, and purpose. And when Mark left, filing for divorce, Ben saw his chance. But Sarah, still healing from the trauma of her marriage, wasn't looking for love, and Ben's attempts to win her affection were met with polite rejection. On the night of September 4th, 1981, Ben made a decision that would change everything. Consumed by frustration and rejection, he broke into Sarah's home, hoping to confront her one last time. What happened next was a tragic escalation of Ben's obsession. When Sarah resisted, Ben's desperation turned to rage. In a moment of uncontrollable anger, he strangled her with a coat hanger. When the truth came to light in 2019, the Lawson family was devastated. For Adam and Daniel, the man who had been their anchor through grief was now their mother's murderer. Lisa, too, struggled to reconcile the truth. She had trusted Ben with her family and her own emotions, only to learn he had betrayed them all. In the end, Ben was convicted of Sarah's murder and sentenced to life in prison. For Willow Creek, the trial was a painful reminder of how easily trust could be betrayed. For Adam, Daniel, and Lisa, the scars of Sarah's loss and Ben's betrayal would never fully heal. But they found solace in remembering the woman Sarah was and the love she gave them. Years later, Adam visited Sarah's grave, his heart heavy but his resolve strong. As he stood there, he made a vow to honor her memory by living a life she would be proud of. Sarah Lawson's story is one of love, loss, and resilience, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, the human spirit endures. As we reflect on Sarah Lawson's story, a tale of love, loss, and betrayal, we're left with one haunting question. How well do we really know the people we trust the most? Could someone in your life be hiding a dark secret? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe to Dark Crime Tales for more gripping stories inspired by true crime. Don't forget to press the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe.